Well, good afternoon, everyone. Great to be here with you today, and I think this is shaping up to be a great party conference. We've heard super stuff from Tim Aker and David Coburn and from other MEP colleagues from this platform, so you can see what a great team there is in Brussels, and I'm happy and proud to work with those guys. This is our first conference since our great victory in the Brexit referendum. This is the conference where we say farewell to Nigel Farage, at least as party leader, although I think we'll see an awful lot of him in the future, and where we greet as our new party leader, Diane James. What I'd like to do first of all is to add my voice to the tributes that have already been paid to Nigel. Every one of us in this hall today has played a part in the Brexit campaign, but I very much doubt that we would have won it without all the tireless efforts that Nigel has made both during the campaign and during the 2 decades when he led and inspired the party. Now, we all know that Nigel is going to be an incredibly tough act to follow, but we wish Diane James every success as our new party leader. She has a very challenging job to do, but she has the skills, the character, the determination, the media savvy to succeed. And I'm sure that Diane can count on the support of all of us in this hall and throughout the party in the task which she has undertaken. Now, Diane is going to be making her own decisions, and she's going to be making her own appointments for policy spokesmen for the party. And if so be, I shall be happy to pass on my responsibility for industry and energy to whomever she chooses to appoint. But I have had the privilege of speaking on energy for the party for the last 4.5 years, so perhaps I may take just a few seconds of your time to outline a few key thoughts on that policy area. First of all, nuclear. I have always been convinced that nuclear energy must be a key element in a rational British energy policy. And so initially, I welcomed the decision to proceed with a new nuclear power station, Hinkley C. But I have become increasingly concerned about the costs. Nuclear power is potentially cheap over the lifetime of a reactor, yet we have struck a deal which makes nuclear energy as expensive as offshore wind, and that at a time when fossil fuel prices are actually declining. Add to that the increasing concerns over security with the Chinese involvement, and I'm afraid we have to conclude that Hinkley C is a bad deal for Britain. In fact, I would draw a parallel. It is a vanity project, it is grossly expensive, and I would put it alongside HS2 as one of those white elephants, which are going to burden our children and our grandchildren with debt. Then let's turn to renewables. I and the party have been resolutely opposed to wind and solar for a whole range of reasons, but mostly because they put at risk both affordability and energy security. That is true today, but we need to watch developments closely because the costs of both solar and wind are reducing. The industry is claiming what they call grid parity for renewables. They're wrong to do so because they choose to ignore the additional costs caused by the intermittency of renewables. But equally, there are very rapid developments going on in large-scale energy storage. Today, we don't have the massive storage which would overcome the intermittency problem, but in 10 years' time, we may well have. That doesn't mean that we're wrong to oppose renewables today. If I'm right, and renewables will become economically viable, with reduced costs and massive storage capacity, say by 2025, we shall still look back and ask why we squandered vast resources covering the country with equipment which from that future vantage point will look hopelessly clunky, old-fashioned and inefficient. So let's keep those thoughts in mind. Then let's consider gas. It was the Labour statesman Aneurin Bevan, and let's remember the Labour Party used to have statesmen back in the day. Aneurin Bevan said, "Britain is an island made mainly of coal and surrounded by fish." And colleagues, we're going to have those fish back after Brexit. But if an Aaron Bevan were around today, he might well say that Britain was an island built on gas and surrounded by fish. I know there are real concerns amongst the public about shale gas, and even possibly some concerns in the party. And that's not surprising, given all the negative propaganda we've seen surrounding the technology. But I tell you this, an independent Britain needs an independent power supply, and we cannot afford to ignore the potential under our feet. If the shale gas reserves are anywhere near some of the estimates, then the impact on the economy, on prosperity, on jobs, on energy security, on balance of payments, on tax revenues will be dramatic. It would be irresponsible to ignore so great an opportunity. But let's return to the main theme of our conference today, Brexit and our amazing victory. During the referendum campaign, I was always careful to warn of possible economic volatility after the Brexit vote. And conference, I'll be honest with you, I felt that if we won the Brexit vote, we would face months, perhaps years of negative headlines. I thought our job would be to go out there and say, well, look, hang in there, grit your teeth, it's going to be all right, there will be benefits, they'll come through. But I've got to tell you, I have simply been amazed by the headlines that we're getting. We are doing better than my wildest dreams. There has been no emergency budget. Mortgage rates have not rocketed. House prices have not slumped. The FTSE is ahead of its pre-Brexit level. High street spending is up. Confidence is recovered in service and manufacturing. Cars are selling. There is a tourist boom in London and across the country. Hotels, bars and restaurants are full. And that's not just kippers celebrating. Countries around the world, frustrated in their efforts to negotiate with the EU, are queuing up to open up trade talks on deals with a newly independent UK. OK, so the pound is down, but that has proved a tonic for exporters and has had a huge positive impact on our balance of payments. Many economists would agree that the pound was in any case overvalued and needed an adjustment. So what has suffered from Brexit? I'll tell you what suffered. The reputation of George Osborne has suffered. And of the Treasury, and of Mark Carney at the Bank of England, and the IMF, and President Obama, and assorted banks and consultants and accountancy firms and ratings agencies. They all called it wrong. This is an example of groupthink at its worst. Some of the whining Remainiacs are calling for a second referendum. But what would they say? Their whole case was based on Project Fear. The sky would fall if we voted to leave, but the sky didn't fall. Project Fear has imploded. It has vanished in a puff of smoke. They have no case to argue. On social media, some voices are saying that now we've won, UKIP can pack up and go home. Mission accomplished. No more to be done. Some suggest that the UKIP MEP should resign in a body, in a great gesture of triumphant hubris. But colleagues, remember that our country has voted for Brexit, but we don't have Brexit yet. Today, as we speak, Britain is still a fully paid-up member of the EU. We are still subject to EU law. We are still paying billions for the so-called privilege of membership. And we have a Prime Minister who insists that Brexit is Brexit, but doesn't actually seem to know what Brexit means. So let's tell her. Brexit means independence. It means we are no longer subject to EU laws and EU policies. It means we will pay nothing to the EU budget. We will control our own borders and our own immigration and our own fisheries. And as a strong and independent nation, we will make the same sort of deal with the EU that we would make with America or China or any other country. We will not accept the Swiss or the Norwegian models and their dodgy compromises with Brussels. So, colleagues, our job is not finished yet. We have to hold Theresa May's kitten heels to the fire to make sure there is no backsliding. I occasionally read a little poetry or history, and although I'm not a religious man, I recently found a prayer of Sir Francis Drake which I think fits the bill exactly for these circumstances. Sir Francis Drake faced the Spanish Armada, possibly the greatest military machine the world had yet seen, but they say he insisted on finishing his game of bowls on Plymouth Hoe before going down to blow the European fleet out of the water. And what was his prayer? He prayed, "O Lord God, when thou givest it to thy servants to endeavour any great matter, grant us to know that it is not the beginning, but the continuing of the same unto the end, until it be thoroughly finished, which yieldeth the true glory." Colleagues, we have won a great battle, but the war won't be won until Britain is independent again. Colleagues, I said to begin with that we owe a great debt of gratitude to Nigel Farage. Not just us in this hall today, but the whole party and indeed the whole country. But perhaps, just perhaps, the whole of Europe will also be in his debt. Be in no doubt that our Brexit victory has inspired others across Europe. The Swedish Democrats, and wasn't it wonderful to have Peter Lundgren with us today with his message? But it's not just Sweden. There is the AfD in Germany, the Five Star Movement in Italy, the Freedom Party in Austria, the Visegrad Group in Eastern Europe, which is in revolt against Brussels' migrant plans. So let me close with one last quotation, this time from William Pitt the Younger in his last public speech in the City of London in 1805, just after our victory in the Battle of Trafalgar. He said, "England has saved herself by her exertions and will, as I trust, save Europe by her example." Colleagues, like Martin Luther King, I too have a dream of a free and prosperous Europe of democratic sovereign nations, linked only by free trade and voluntary intergovernmental cooperation. I believe that that dream is closer today than it has ever been in my lifetime. And if it comes about, much of the credit will be due to this party, to UKIP. We did it. Well done, colleagues. Well done.